Hey guys, it's Alan with the Catch in the Hatch. Today I want to talk to you guys about something called rapid fire fly selection. This is just a little term I coined recently, but it made a lot of sense when I was talking to a friend of mine over a few emails about how they set up their fly fishing rig and different things like that. And what I do specifically during the winter is what we're going to be focusing on here today. But by all means, these flies are interchangeable for spring, summer, and fall. All you got to do is kind of know your seasonal bugs that are working. These are the ones that I'm setting up for winter. We'll go through why I selected these. And then you guys can find your own seasonal insects by either checking out our seasonal bug guides on our free guide section. We're taking our online entomology course, which teaches you guys the A to Z on how to identify insects and understand the seasonality around them and what flies to be having in your box and when to tie them on. So with that being said, we're using that knowledge today to first show you guys the actual fly selection that we're going to be using for winter that we like to go and use out there. And then kind of our methodology of how we get set up even the night before. And so that way when we're out on the river, we can do this rapid fire fly selection. We know that fish in the wintertime eat midges a lot. It's a very common insect. It's a good one to bank and trust on. But there's just as many times where you get kind of a warmer day and the snow starts to melt off a little bit and it muddies the water and they start just hitting the egg patterns or the annelids or your flashier, bigger bugs because they're hungry and things are getting washed downstream and they're ready to attack different types of insects and they won't even look at those midges anymore. So it certainly happens. And so we want to be prepared for a variety of different things. So let's go over some fly selection now, and then we'll talk about the rapid fire system and how we go through and knock out these different types of insects on the water to figure out what the fish are catching or what the fish are eating as quickly as possible. So let's first talk about the idea. This is primarily during winter is a nymphing period. You can see up at the top, probably, I can get a little closer here. We got some dry flies, which are small that time of year, by all means, very, very small. So, but primarily we're talking midges, baetis, which are blue-winged olives, or mayfly nymphs that are olive or dark colored olives. They go by a lot of different names, but that's what we're talking about. We're talking about kind of the winter mayfly nymphs. We're talking about some possible stonefly action, everything from your salmon flies and your larger bugs like this. Yes, they do exist in rivers year-round, and so they certainly can be predated on by trout in a variety of rivers. One thing to note, too, that this fly selection is coming from my knowledge, particularly in Colorado, but these flies, if I were going to anywhere in the world, I would be taking these flies with me if it was winter fly fishing time. I wouldn't be thinking that there's anything else that changes that significantly that would prevent me from doing it because the insects are doing the same thing because that's what the environment is pushing for. So you can take this exact fly selection here and probably do pretty well anywhere you go as well. So feel good about that. With that being said, my methodology is I go, okay, let's focus primarily on nymphs. Now I got 5 rows here, right? These are 5 setups that are going to go on this little like foam spooler. You can also buy these if you don't like that. These can kind of kink the line sometimes. I don't seem to mind, especially when nymphing. I can always kind of straighten it out without too much concern, so I don't wrap them too tight. But if you don't like the idea, then you can wrap your pre-built lines or your rigs effectively onto here and then carry 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these, however many you want. I do 5 because at the end of the day, I haven't caught fish off of 15 flies, different flies in these options. I'm either, my presentation's wrong or my location is wrong. So to go on a rabbit trail for just a quick second, I always talk about 3 things that make a big difference in fly fishing that are going to determine your success for the day. We call these the 3 pillars of fly fishing. The first one, no particular order because they all are important and they all have more or less importance on any given day. But fly selection, all this here. Presentation, everything from, nymphing or dry fly fishing or streamer fishing to how you're fishing that streamer, the way you're presenting it, the way you're retrieving it, all these different things can come into the presentation side of things. And then location. Primarily, are you going to the rivers that have fish in them and are good winter fisheries? Second of all, are you fishing the right type of water in there? Second of all, are you fishing the right side of the river? If it's a large river or if it's a small river, are you hitting the right pockets and the right deep holes with the right presentation? All that combined. If you can combine that stuff together, you'll catch more fish and you'll catch fish very often and very reliably. The problem is, of course, is that that's always hard to predict all those things together. But we're always thinking about that in our mind, asking ourselves, what's missing, what's lacking, and trying to fill the gap as we go from there. So let's talk about these flies and why I picked them. Starting from, these are going to be the first fly on the rig. In Colorado, we're allowed to fish 3 flies each, so this helps me a lot. If you are only allowed to do 2 flies in your state, maybe do 6, 7, or 8 different pre-ties if you're really feeling like you want to cover your bases well. I think you can get away with 5 no matter what, be it 2 or 3 flies, but depending on how, into it you want to get, it's certainly fine to do, more, pre-rigs. So the first one here, let's just start down on this here. So I have kind of 2 different ideas. I go, fish are either going to be eating something that's a little flashier, more attractive style. And again, we have a topic on our blog about this, talking about the 4 kinds of fishing flies. If you just Google that, you'll find it. But the attractor style patterns, kind of like this guy here, these soft hackles, this one in particular here, pretty flashy little bug. He's got a lot of different flashy colors to him. They don't really look like a specific insect. So I'm thinking, let's go with attraction. Try to just trigger the fish to eat. They're lazy. They don't have a lot of energy during the winter time, so let's trigger them to eat. The other option is kind of the flip side of that. Say, okay, they are eating, but they're eating what's exactly happening in the river. What do we know from a winter fly fishing perspective from like the entomology course? We know that midges and baetis are active. So that's why all these ones here, you got midges up here, midge, baetis, midge and kind of baetis, emerging midges, emerging baetis, flashier, rainbow warrior style here. But again, you're focusing on emerging insects like a midge or a baetis, small flies, little floating, they got a lot of different names to it, but foamback midge is just the simple name for it. Standard just copper john, hare's ear. You got some general stuff like that. That's just kind of your general attractor patterns, but again, not so flashy. So flashy attractors, and then kind of more like impressionistic type of search patterns that look a little bit like everything, work well in a variety of conditions. Then you got a few things like covering your stoneflies in case they're focused on that. These can also cover stoneflies. So you're just looking and saying, do I have coverage on each of my rigs? What if they're eating midges? Boom, this is going to work well. This will probably pick up a fish. This will probably pick up a fish, and this will probably pick up a fish. And these are all different options. If I fish this here, and this guy's not really working it, I might say, well, he's a little bit bigger out of the other option, so maybe I'll switch to something smaller and more, not so flashy. Maybe just the San Juan worm's just scaring them off a little bit because it's just kind of big and red, and the water's super clear and low, and they're a little nervous about that. So go with a more, one of these rigs up here, one of these rigs down here that are more natural in the way they look. So that'd be a good option as well. So if they're not eating the flashy stuff, that's fine. Go to the midges. If they're not eating the midges, we're going to figure that out pretty quick because every one of our patterns got that. They start snacking on these little black bugs here, like this copper john. Well, that might tell us that they're going to be looking more into this, these sort of options, this sort of stuff probably up here. And we may want to just switch out the midge and say they're not eating the midge. Let's find something here instead of this black copper john. Maybe let's find, something. We got our fly box over here. We could do like a Frenchie, for example, a smaller Frenchie, kind of that same size, something that varies a little bit off of that. And I'll show you guys in the next video what this is going to look like as well in terms of how our system is really easy to switch out flies, be it the middle fly, the top fly, the bottom. We do not tie to the hook bend because that requires us to cut 1 and 2 knots and then retie while we're on the river. And when it comes to winter especially, again, this video works for all seasons, but in the winter it's cold and tying knots is not fun. Rethreading those eyes is not fun, especially when you're talking small, tiny bugs like this with 6X or 7X line or whatever it is you're choosing to fish. It gets tough. And so you want to be as prepared as possible, literally mean like the night before when it's warm and you're in a house like I am here and you have a nice beer or some scotch sitting next to you. That's when you want this. So let's go ahead and go through what I do with my system here real quick as far as tying things on. And then we're going to go to the next video, which is kind of talking about the process once you get on the river. So we're going to tie all of these up. I've got already the first one tied, except for this one here, the first one tied. I do for nymphing rigs 3X, 4X, 5X, or 4X, 5X. I always taper down, and I'll show you because we tie onto the line itself. If you tie onto the line yourself and you are doing like 4X to 4X or even doing like 4X and then going up to 3X on your second fly, you have a better chance of breaking off the entire rig. And so I make use out of kind of always tapering down 3x, 4x, 5x. You're typically got flashier bugs up here anyway as your first fly, and they're just not going to be scared off by 3x, especially if you're using fluoro, which we have over here. So we've got 3, 4, 5, and 6 just for today, just to show you guys. And this is monofilament. Monofilament we use for dry flies, and then I use fluorocarbon for all of my nymphing. It sinks faster. There's a variety. You can look it up. The debate's out there, but I live with these things here. And by the way, we're bringing these soon to the Catch and Hatch. We'll be selling these exact fluoros with some cool little branding on it, and then same with the mono tippets and these little tenders on them as well to make it really easy and convenient to use. And by the way, they'll be quite affordable. So you guys are going to love that. If I already have them, there'll probably be a link in the bio below on this video once they come out. So let's just take this because it'll probably be the easiest. Okay, so we already got our 3X, right? And I've shown you guys in this other video, if you look at how to set up a modified Euro rig, I'm showing you the same thing, but I'm going to show it again because you guys really liked that. So this one here, I started with 3X. So let's just grab some 4X. Let's just grab some 4X here. And these have a little notch on them on the inside here like this. So all you do is just pull that line free right in the middle. And it pulls, this is a brand new one here. Get that little tape off. Comes with a little tape the first time. And then you find these here, and you keep some tension on this as you're pulling them loose, or they're just going to come super unraveled. But I like to do about 2 loops. So here's the little notch. Okay, here's the notch. And I like to do 2, right? So there's starting 1 and 2. Just about to there. And then I do the other half of that loop there just to make sure, whoops. Here we go. Then we come back through that notch, keeping a little tension on it. Sorry, it's a little hard with the camera in the way. And then it pushes back down into that notch and it'll hold. Then you can clip it and you got your 4X. Now you don't need to do anything else with the flies right now. All you do is do an improved clinch knot by holding, there we go, holding this loop right here. You're going to make a loop by, so here's your tag end, or here's your line end, here's your tag end. You're going to, I'm doing it through the camera, let's see how that works. You're going to go, you make a loop by holding this. This is kind of like where it's like if you already threaded it through the fly, this is what's left over, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Run it back through that loop. Then it made this loop. And it made this loop. So you're going to go back through that loop. And I completely missed. This is harder than it looks when you're trying to do it with the camera, folks. Let's see, I think I got it. My poor eyesight. There, all right, that time we got it. Then you pull through there, and it all tightens down just a little bit. I like to wet the knot a little. Tightens up. Now what's happening here is it's making this loop. Okay? In theory, this would have just gone right into the eye of the fly, and you tie it down. It would cinch down, just like the clinch knot does, and you'd be good to go. But what we can do instead here now is take this and run the entire fly through the setup. Right through, and now he's onto the line. And then we cinch it down to the line. And then sometimes you got to pull this little tag end right here just a little bit, just so the knot kind of cinches in. But it's all what it looks like. Very straightforward. Then all you got to do is just pull on the 2 lines. And what's happening here is that you've got the line tied to the hook tied to the line like this. So this slides, right, back and forth. And when you're fishing, you've got 3 of these happening like this, and you're good to go. So here's my 3X up here, and then it comes down to 4X, and this is where we tie on our next fly, which I'll just I'll do later. It's because you guys, if you don't know how to do a improved clinch knot, you can look up some other videos. I won't waste your time on that. However, here's the benefit to why I tie to that line. People are like, why do you do that? It isn't going to break off. It causes all these issues. How does the fish float or the fly float? What's nice about this is, let's say I want this salmon or this squirming worm just ain't cutting it, right? It's too heavy. He's got double tungsten beads on here. He's a bomber. Maybe it's just too much for the water I'm fishing, and everything else about the rig is good, but I want to switch it out. Now, so down here would be the other fly, imaginary, down here, right? And I go, well, how do I switch out this fly? It's really easy. I can just take this fly, take the 4X line that I just tied to, and I pull. And see how it slides through? Now I can cut this off, retie on whatever fly I need with all this here. All this just kind of goes over my hand right now. Retie this on, boom, 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 boom. I do a pink squirmy worm, or maybe not this double B because it's too heavy, but I like the squirmy worm still. And then when I'm done, again, grab both the lines, and bloop, done. And this has really good success. I fish a 3-weight rod. I rarely break off flies unless it's for, reasons of getting snagged or, hard setting a fish and being an idiot or something like that. It happens, but I really don't break off very often. I haven't seen any issues with this particular setup, so highly recommend it. I'm gonna go ahead and tie off the rest of these here now, and we're gonna move on to the next part of the video, which is going to be going over kind of this rapid fly process. So I'm gonna tie up all these flies, and then I'm gonna put them onto these spools. Okay, so we'll be right back, and I'll show you guys that in our next video. If you guys are liking these, please like and subscribe to our channel and share it with others. That helps a lot. We really appreciate it. See you guys on the next video.